Our second reading this day comes from Mark's Gospel, the 13th chapter, verses 1 through 8. As he came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." Then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will this be, and what will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" Then Jesus began to say to them, "Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pains." The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. Amen. Don't stop. We often use these two little words as words of encouragement. We say them to someone who is running a long distance and may seem to be struggling with only a quarter of the way to complete the run. Don't stop. Keep going. You're almost there. We shout those words when we attend a concert, and the performance ends with the audience feeling the excitement within, and they don't want that feeling to end. Don't stop. Keep playing. One more song. Don't stop. Don't quit. Don't give up are interchangeable phrases that we use to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps, to pick ourselves up when we fall flat on our face. This text may not sound like it, but there really is a word of encouragement in it. This chapter 13 in Mark is also known as the Little Apocalypse because of the language and the images about the end of the age. It starts out innocently, I believe, with the apostles admiring the architectural structure of the temple that they are sitting outside of, and voice their admiration for the building. But instead of agreeing with the disciples, Jesus tells them to not get too enamored with it because it will crumble and end up in a pile of rubble. Of course, the disciples want to know when, so they take Jesus aside and ask him in private. He doesn't tell them about a specific day and time, but instead gives them a warning when that time will come. That is what we hear this morning, a warning about what is to come. Jesus tells his disciples and us to be wary of the signs that will be appearing, to be wary of those who claim to be the Messiah, but instead of leading individuals to God, will lead them astray. He tells us that there will be wars, nation against nation, earthquakes and famines. All these things will take place, but the end is still to come. For many people, they hear these signs, then apply them to the world around them. We hear and see the destruction of bigger earthquakes these days that we haven't seen before. We hear and see of the war in the Middle East, of China making threatening gestures toward Taiwan, and there is still the tension between Northern Ireland and Ireland. We see and hear of the starving children and families in Africa, India, even in the U.S. So many places around the world that we often don't hear about. But food insecurity is more prevalent today than ever before. Some will say, see, this is a sign that the end is near. Put that thought into people's minds, and they can see that the end really is near. And it is easy for fear and panic to set in. Remember when we hit the millennium, the year we hit 2000, and everyone was getting ready for the stroke of midnight because we just knew, that would be the end of it all. People were really scared, learning how to seal their windows in their homes with plastic or saran wrap, how to stock up on food to make sure it would last in the days of destruction that would come with the new millennium. And for only $10.99, you could get a video full of instructions of how to prepare yourself for the year 2000. Someone made a bundle out of people's fears. The one who made the bundle of money is just one of the many voices that will lead people astray. But we must be careful to not be gullible to everything we hear. As one commentary put it, the text provides no criteria for distinguishing the false voices from the true voices. No litmus test to determine authenticity. Rather, the mention of false prophets alerts the church, us, not to be gullible, not to be taken in by every pious voice that has a new idea. The church, we, are to listen carefully and to think clearly, and in so doing, to nurture a spirit of discernment. We cannot let our fears of suffering be our guide each and every day. We cannot let our fear of the end times cause us to listen and follow those other voices. Jesus says to us, do not be alarmed. This must take place. Wars, earthquakes, famine, hurricanes, tsunamis, destructive floods, fires are just a part of the life of the world. These are nothing compared to what is to come, because what is to come is the birth pains of a new heaven and a new earth. And anyone who has given birth knows that the pain is like no other pain, but it certainly is worth the effort. So we don't panic, but instead we have hope. Despite all that may take place, despite all those who shout from their megaphones on street corners that the end is near, we do not lose hope. We don't stop believing in God. We don't give up on our faith. And we don't quit living the life that God gave us to live. Instead, we keep going. We don't stop doing what we do as followers of Jesus Christ. There will still be those who need food, those who need clothing, those who are lost and alone, those who work for justice for all people and for all that is going on in a world of conflict. There are those who are still working for peace. It is that peace that comes from our faith in God through Jesus Christ that keeps us going and not giving up. It is that peace that calms our fears and anxieties that comes to us as we face the trials and tribulations of our lives and the world around us. Even though it may seem like the signs Jesus speaks about are taking place right outside our door, we must always remember that only God is in charge of the calendar. It is only God who knows when those last days will come. We must remember the promise that God gives us, that in those days God's children will not suffer. If we honestly believe in God, we will be saved, and we have nothing to fear. So don't stop believing in God. Don't stop trusting in the one who created you. Don't stop growing in your faith. Keep living the abundant life that God has given you, even to the end of the age. Amen. For those